And welcome to episode number 5 of the Between Two Brands podcast. Man, I still love that theme song every time I hear it. Thank you again, Jason Noakes at Promo Pulse. I am your host, Bill Petrie, still your only host. And I want to thank everybody for being part of this little experiment so far. I think it's going pretty well. But before we get started, I want to pay a quick bill. Hey, attention distributors, it is 2025 and your clients are no longer satisfied with you merely acting as a middleman, slapping their logo on generic, predictable, and frankly uninspiring products. What they're demanding is something a little bit more. Merchandise that feels thoughtfully curated for their unique brand. The days of relying on standard off-the-shelf items that are available to anyone are over. To stand out, your clients need something exceptional. Merchandise that truly reflects their identity and sets them apart from the crowd. And this is where our good friend Russ Mogel and his team at 7 Sourcing come in. With over 30 years of direct custom merchandise sourcing, they are the clear leaders in the space. Here's just a couple reasons why you need to partner with 7 Sourcing when it comes to custom merchandise sourcing. Establish relationships with vetted and trusted factories. They ensure all merchandise passes a rigorous quality control check by an accredited third-party partner. They comply with and frequently exceed industry standards, manufacturing requirements, and product safety regulations, and they manage every single part of the logistics and communicate throughout every step of the process. In other words, with their expertise, they know how to deliver bespoke merchandise that will position you, Mr. and Mrs. Distributor, as the hero in the eyes of your client, while also steering clear of the common pitfalls that come with managing it all by yourself. Now, let's be clear. Yeah, it takes a little bit more time, typically between 75 and 90 days, to design, develop, and deliver truly unique and original merchandise. But isn't that extra planning time worth it to craft exceptional products that foster lasting loyalty? I'm pretty certain of it. So when you're ready to elevate yourself from just a promotional products distributor to a true partner who delivers exactly what your clients crave, unique, custom branded merchandise designed specifically for them, reach out to Russ and his team at sales@7sourcing.com. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into it before we get to our guest. This first section of the podcast is kind of evolving. Still not exactly sure what it's going to be as of yet, but I kind of like how it's going. So today I wanted to talk about something that is really impacting just about everybody in the United States, but I want to look at it through the lens of promotional products, and that is DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. Now, before anybody starts getting all cranky with me, this isn't really a political discussion. I don't really care to engage anyone online about the pros and cons of what's happening, how it's happening. I'm here to talk about the reality of what's happening and how it really could potentially impact the promotional product space. Now, we all know it's a temporary commission, but it's not an official government entity. But it does have the ear of President Trump, and it's obviously run by Elon Musk. Now, DOGE also has an advocate in Senator Joni Ernst, who's a Republican from Iowa, who's taking the role of the chair of the Senate DOGE caucus that's very critical of government overspending. Now, before I go any further, I don't think there's anyone who doesn't agree that we'd like government to be more efficient. I think we all hear the stories about the Department of Defense spending thousands of dollars on toilet seats, and we've heard those stories for decades. But this is reaching a little bit further, so it seems. So included on the list that DOGE is targeting is that of branded merchandise for federal agencies. Now, this is always the whipping boy. Our industry is the whipping boy, tends to be for when it comes to government spending. That's what they always trot out there, along with those aforementioned toilet seats. But they grouped it with obvious wastefulness, like extended paid leave for employees who are investigated for misconduct, and so on and so forth. Now, on X, this Senator Joni Ernst from Iowa said, federal agencies collectively spend $1.5 billion every year on public relations and propaganda. This includes koozies, keychains, coloring books, Snuggies, and costume mascots. Let's bag the swag. To me, this is a case of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Is there water? Did I say that weird? I did say that weird. Water. I don't say water, but I did there. Throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Is there wasteful spending in government? Sure. Is there misuse of promotional products, just like any other federal spend? Of course there is. But to say everything is bad, to work in a black and white society here is really missing the point because everything really is a gray area. And this is leading me up to talk about LEAD and why LEAD is so important. If you're not familiar with LEAD, it's Legislative Education and Action Day. And it's a day where volunteers go up to Capitol Hill and meet with both senators and congresspeople to explain the value of branded merchandise, generally through the lens of, hey, we're 95% small businesses, and the decisions you make here absolutely have real and lasting impact on not only our businesses but our families. This is something I have been really passionate about. I've gone to LEAD, I think, 8 of the last 9 years. LEAD this year is April 7th and 8th. Unfortunately, I won't be able to attend this year as kind of a weird spring for me and my family as one of my kids gets ready to graduate from college. The other one's going to graduate in December, and we just have a lot of things going on. And unfortunately, I can't make it this year, which kind of bums me out, but that's beside the point. You can attend. And if you're interested in attending today, the day this podcast drops, which is Valentine's Day, February 14th, is the last day to cast your, put in your voice if you want to be part of LEAD. And I'll explain what that is in just a second. But you can go to ppai.org and sign up to attend. And what you do there is really put a face to our industry. And I will tell you, I have had some of the most robust, some of the most engaging conversations with not only senators and congresspeople, generally end up meeting with their aides and their staff, but to open their eyes on what the decisions, the policy decisions that they are making, how it impacts our industry, whether it's the classifications of employees, whether it's DOGE or something like that, or simply just the efficacy of branded merchandise and the value that our industry provides in terms of real advertising, the only form of advertising where the recipient says thank you. It is important. So I'm hopeful that this year, that when our great volunteers go up to Washington, D.C. to speak with the representatives, our representatives in the government, they talk about the fact that you can't, well, I guess you can, but the damage that if you cut out all spending on promotional products when it comes to the federal government, the havoc that will wreak not only within our industry from a selfish perspective, but I think they're missing the bigger picture. And I'm hopeful you agree with me. So I guess let's call that my merchatorial for the day. So before we get to our guest, let me pay one more bill. Hey, do you know what season it is? That's right. It's business valuation season. And perhaps you don't know what your company is worth. Maybe it's been more than a few years since your last valuation and you need a new benchmark to see if your company is increasing in value. Heck, maybe you want to see if it's time to sell your business. Now, regardless of the reason, Jamie Watson, the experts at Certified Marketing Consultants, have extensive experience in the world of branded merchandise and theoretical knowledge necessary to provide a fact-based valuation for your business. Simply email them at info@certifiedmarketing.com for a confidential business discussion today. All right, with that, let's get to our guest. My first guest needs actually my only guest, so there you go. So our guest today needs no introduction, but as is tradition, I'm going to waste some of your time and introduce her anyway. She was hired into IDLine shortly after her third generation family owner took over. She was trained by the second generation VP of sales and was able to bridge the gap between what had always been done and bringing a fresh new approach to the company. She now runs sales and marketing at IDLine, and additionally, she is a 2024 PPAI Rising Star and is very active in her regional association, UMAP, for those of you keeping score at home, serving as a committee chair for social media and Connects, which is the fun events that UMAP does. She also helped spearhead young professionals group for UMAP to bring people together to connect, collaborate, and have some fun. Outside of work, she loves to travel, especially to Europe. Who doesn't? That's probably an extraneous bit of information none of us needed to know. We already probably knew that. Another passion of hers is cooking. It's her favorite thing to do to decompress at the end of the day. I completely relate to that and love that. Please join me in welcoming the lovely and talented Lindsay Bons, Senior Business Development Manager for IDLine. Lindsay, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Bill, for having me. I'm super excited to talk to you today. I know I'm throwing a topic at you, but
You
this
are.
topic you have a lot of experience in also. But I want to talk about relationship building because I think it's something that's so important to our industry.
Okay.
But I'm realizing too, there's some people that don't necessarily know how to start the conversation or build the relationship past, hello, how are you? What company do you
Mhm.
work for? So that's
Right.
the big thing that I want to talk about.
Okay.
So if you don't want to throw anything in there right away, otherwise I can keep going.
I'll throw some things in there. You know, it's funny coming off of Expo. I was joking with someone when we were at Vegas. I know walking into Vegas before I ever land, the exact conversation I'm going to have with 96% of people. How was your holiday?
Mhm.
Busy start to the year. When did you get to Vegas? When are you leaving Vegas? Do you have time for a drink later? And that's basically it for every person you run into in the hallways. And it occurred to me, it's like, gosh, we are all on a wash, rinse, repeat cycle. So I love your topic. One of the questions I love asking, especially from a distributor perspective, you know, I talk to a lot of distributors, and when I see them at a trade show, that what's new? What do you have that's new? And I think that's one of the dumbest questions you can ask. Actually, I think what's selling? What's happening in your world? So any variation of that, whether you're actually on the trade show floor asking that question, but if you're looking to really build relationships, why not? You know, what do you do outside of this? So, I mean, I see at trade shows, we always have nice conversations, but what do you like to do? Like when you provided your bio, absolutely love the fact you said travel to Europe. I want to travel. That's lovely. That you like to cook afterwards. That spoke to my heart
Yep.
because that's 1000% my therapy
Mhm.
from work. So I want to hear though from your perspective because I'm
Yes. Yep.
you're a rising star. I'm a waning moon. I want to hear from your perspective. What's a good way for you to get to know people?
Well, you're right. You ask those questions that are kind of the canned questions that everyone asks, or how's the weather? Usually
Yeah.
Vegas is your football team gonna make it to the Super Bowl? Those kind of questions. I
Right.
would always say asking just one more question.
Okay.
I even think about it like in an elevator. Someone asks you what floor you're going to, you punch in their floor for them, ask them one more question.
Like, can I
Like,
join you in your room? Like that?
not like that,
Oh, okay.
but like
Hey, I'm just clarifying.
anything fun plans for this weekend or something like that, just to add one more question. People that are more willing to ask you one more question. And I always say to be curious and actually genuinely care. So that's two C's.
Yeah.
Be curious and care what people have to say. I go on a lot of personal trips, so I usually can talk about trips. I find myself having a little bit of a harder time when people start talking about their children because I don't currently have any children.
Right. It's
So I
not your life. It's not
it
something you can relate to.
exactly. So I usually then am feeling like I'm relating my childhood experience, which
Yeah.
sometimes people love to talk about their children, but my childhood experience is not exactly what they want to be hearing about, but it's the only way I can relate in those situations.
Yeah. And I think I love what you said, care
Mhm.
and be curious. And I think what you end up finding out, and you're 24, I'm 55, so we have a 31-year age spread.
I turned 25. I'm not 25, so my full
Well,
frontal lobe's developed.
okay, well, perhaps. But I think your generation has a much better approach to being curious and really being comfortable finding, I hate the word tribe, so I'm going to use it, but finding the people you're aligned with where you don't, it's not, I have to work at caring. You actually just automatically care.
Exactly.
I think it's taken my generation years to get out of that whole raise as a people pleaser to, hey, there are some people that just aren't going to like me, and I'm very comfortable with that now. But at your age, that would devastate me. It's like, why wouldn't someone want to get to know me? And why is that? I envy that about you personally. You have this wonderful aura of I'm authentically me, and if I'm not for you, that's cool. And I love that. I actually envy that. And I think when you want to get to know people, you become when you have that level of comfort in your back pocket of some people will love me, some people will not, and I can't explain either one. And when you have that level of comfort, I think it makes you so much more appealing in terms of people want to care and get to know you better. So I love that question.
Yeah.
It's something I think we all need to think about more. I wish I had more time to think about it, but that's not what how I created this dumb podcast. I said
No,
blindside me.
this is great. I was like, I watched every single one, so great job to get all the previous guests. But I think with relationships, also, you're right. You don't have to be liked by everyone. You can say hello, like, and it doesn't need to go past that if
You can
that's
be
not
pleasant,
cup
sure.
of tea kind of person.
Yeah.
It's usually not one thing either. It's just maybe your personalities don't mesh or you're not in the same stage of life, so you don't have things to talk about. And most people, if you have a conversation and maybe you mess up on what you say, I have so much going on in my life that I'm not going to remember that you said my name
Right.
wrong at such and such show 4 years ago or whatever it
Right.
is.
Right.
So I
I
think that's
think
a big
part of,
thing.
yeah, I think part of it too is, you know, we all have good days, bad days, horrible days, parts of our personality that are lovely and effervescent, parts of our personality that are raging jerks. And I'm sure there's people, I like to consider myself generally very nice, very pleasant, outgoing, and I love being around people. But also, there's times I've probably snapped at somebody because who knows what's going on in my personal life, or I just got some bad news. And so, if that's the one slice that the only slice somebody's experienced, they may think, well, I don't know what Petrie's a jerk, and that's their experience. And some people, unfortunately, don't allow others to change that narrative.
Exactly. So I think
Awesome.
asking the one more question is always a good
You
thing.
can. Yeah,
You
I love that.
always,
I love that. So, especially in our industry where it is relationships, there's
Mhm.
no supplier from your perspective, there's no distributor that has, I've got the only one that has this product. Now, there are a couple of exceptions, but let's paint with a broad
Exactly.
stroke here. And so when all things are equal, and generally prices too, people are going to buy from people that they like doing business with, that make it easy for them to do business with. And so I do say to people outside of our industry, because I do have friends outside the promotional products industry, believe it or not,
Mhm.
um, I do tell them that it is the ultimate relationship business because if you burn a bridge, your client not only can get just about the same thing, if not exactly the same thing somewhere else, they will tell 40 people about it and it'll
Exactly.
be exquisitely painful.
Or they'll try to post it on a Facebook page or something. I know you've talked about this already, but you're right.
No, it's
I'm gonna
okay.
complain. I do love though when people say they're good, good things that happen or the highlights of a company. I love hearing that side of things. Things happen, but
Oh, I do too. I love getting on the promotional products Facebook page, but I'm there a lot and I try to help people when they need help.
Mhm.
And I love when I see people jumping in and helping. I don't love when, people just post, and there was one a couple weeks ago squawking about a supplier. They just, oh, I'll never use supplier X again. No
Yeah.
narrative, no nothing. And so that's usually when, like, okay, a little stress reliever, and I will write 4 paragraphs explaining why that take is wrong and dumb,
Mhm.
and it's just honestly, it's irresponsible, and then they end up deleting the post. So I figure that's always, mission
Yeah,
accomplished.
exactly. Exactly.
Awesome. Do you have another topic? Are
I
we going right into 5 questions?
I do have another topic.
Okay.
You pointed out how young I am. I think too there is bridging the gap in IDLine. I've also bridged some of the gap with age in the industry
Hmm.
to being able to go up to someone and introduce yourself. This is back to relationships, but
Yeah.
their title, yes, it matters, but also go say hello. So making sure it's not a title that's deterring you or whatever it might be that's deterring you from going saying hello. If the person doesn't have time, they usually will ask you about one question about yourself and then we can move on.
Yeah.
But it's all the different things too, if it's bringing social media into it more. I think this industry does do a great job of using social media to your advantage. If that's creating a fun TikTok or it's creating, I just created my own personal Instagram for promo because I was realizing there, I know, pretty exciting. But I didn't necessarily want everything personal to also then be promo. It's the personal people don't care necessarily about promo, especially coming as a supplier. I'm not going to sell to any of them. So creating that promo channel that on Instagram I can post when I go on work trips and people can see a little bit more behind the scenes. And that's something that I think not just my generation has brought, but that's a bigger thing in promo that is happening.
Yeah, I think so. Danny Rosen, who I'm sure you know, Danny at Brand Fuel, is a friend, a good friend of mine. I guess I can name drop. I just did. That's weird.
So many friends.
He said something years ago that, what social media is really good at is turning a handshake into a hug. And I absolutely agree with that. And, you know, I'm comfortable putting myself out there in certain ways and that's what for when people ask me what to do with social media, I'm like, put yourself out there in ways you're comfortable with. But realize if for whatever reason you get some sort of notoriety or people will act like they know you and that gets weird. I've done a podcast every Friday for almost 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
I share everything on the podcast that I'm comfortable sharing. It's a slice
Yeah.
of my personality and a slice of my life, but then people will act like they know who you are, and that's always
Mhm.
awkward. But what I love what you said is, social media can bridge that gap. I met you at LDC in October in Dallas, and you came up to me, introduced yourself, and we had a quick conversation. I don't remember how long it was, but I remember I don't remember who I was with. I think it was Lindsay Davis, and I turned around like, she's impressive. Just because I love the fact that you had the confidence to walk up to somebody twice your age and just say, "Hey, I know who you are." You were very just it wasn't, and you didn't blow my ego up or anything like that. It was just more of a, I wanted to meet you and all this, and it was really cool. And I think I'd like to see, like you said, I'd like to see more of that, but I'd also like to see it in the reverse.
Mhm.
One of the reasons I was real thrilled to be at LDC is I got to see a lot of the rising stars and I, get to meet you. And obviously I am really good friends with Brittany Fraze and several of
Mhm.
the other people who were rising stars this year. It's important for me as someone who is on the back nine of my career. It's important for me to remain relevant if I want to remain relevant, to get to know people who A, younger than me, B, think differently than I do, and C, challenge my way of thinking. Anytime I've been in a position of hiring people, I shouldn't say this, oh, there's no human resources on the phone, but I've always skewed younger because I want different ideas because I know what I like. That is not an issue for me. I'm really good at what I like. But what about things I don't know about? What are ways to think about visuals or writing that are very different than mine? And so I like that. So I think it's not, I think there's sometimes in my generation, too many of us, well, they should know who I am and come up to me. I don't view that at all. I want to, you should get to know everybody. It does keep you, age is really just a number and you can really think younger than you are. And so I agree with that.
I love that too. Yes. And I was I met you in October, like
Yeah.
first time in person actually meeting you.
Yeah.
And I'm just honored to be already invited then as a podcast guest, only knowing you for a couple of months. But it's just exciting to see and get the different perspectives. Like, I don't have season experience. I don't know what's happened in promo even 10
Right.
years ago. So, getting some perspective sometimes is also super beneficial to me. And it's
Well,
okay to ask.
yeah. And I think you and folks in your generation who maybe don't have a shit ton of promo experience. A lot of people look at that as, well, they don't have a lot to offer. They haven't been around. Man, to me, it's the opposite. They have more to offer than everybody else who's a retread in this industry, myself included, because they bring different ideas. They have experiences that you don't have. I've been in the industry now 25 years. So I've seen a lot. but it's been a while since I've worked outside this industry. So I don't bring those outside perspectives in. That's just not a skill set I have anymore. It's not a tool I have. So people like you, yeah, I think that's important.
Yes. Well, and a lot of things too are little giveaways, and I get questions all the time because I'm not that far removed from college. What did I
Right.
actually like to receive when someone was trying to recruit you at a career fair or whatever it might be?
Yeah.
Actually, having a little bit of that and relevance is beneficial. So ask
100%.
the younger people questions that you want to ask. Was
I think
great.
that's awesome. I think it's awesome. Great
Perfect.
questions. I
Thanks.
love the juxtaposition with age.
Hmm.
I was on a panel at LDC, and I think we need more of those things, more of those honest discussions, about. I think the younger generation needs to see there's older folks like me who absolutely adapt as much as I am comfortable with, and I think it's quite a bit. But also, I think the older generation needs to realize that, hey, people 30 years your junior may work differently, but it doesn't mean they don't care, and it doesn't mean they're not going to get the job done in a great way. So
Okay.
I love the conversation.
Perfect. Well, thank you.
All right. Well, I have now it's time to get awkward.
Ooh, good. Exciting.
Okay. So I'm going to channel my inner Zach Galifianakis. One day I'm going to actually say that without stuttering like that. All right. Lindsay,
Yes.
you were named a PPAI Rising Star at 24, not 25.
Yes.
When I was 24, my biggest achievement was avoiding the Be Kind rewind fees at my local Blockbuster Video. How does it feel to peak before you can even rent a car for an extra fee?
I think it's interesting to be able, I don't know, you're saying I'm peaking. I think I'm going up still, so I'm gonna keep climbing. But doing it before that, like 25 or your quarter life crisis is interesting. You are constantly learning. It's okay to make mistakes. And I think mistakes and almost failures has helped me grow faster. Being okay, being uncomfortable has what's helped me grow a lot. And being able to take, like you said at the beginning, I helped bridge the gap between the second generation and the third generation with the president. So the new president and the previous vice president of sales. So taking that and seeing it's worked, trying things new, seeing all those kind of things is what's helped me progress and relationships. I rely so heavily on some of my supplier friends, asking them questions, asking my mentor questions, those kind of things that have helped me exponentially grow faster than if I was just to sit behind the desk and not take any outside input, not try anything new, those kind of things.
Yeah, well, you're not peaking. Obviously, that was just a dumb question, but I love what you said about owning your mistakes. I'm a huge advocate of that. I think I share in social media and in my presentations my failures far more than I do my successes. But I learn from them, and that's important. It's important for people to see that, okay, they're human and they screw up and all that. And I love that you learn from that. All right, question number two. You're the senior business development manager at IDLine at an age where most people are still figuring out how direct deposit works. How do the olds, like me, react to your new ideas?
Hmm. Reacting to my ideas, I think it's just to start a conversation and not just to have an idea. I am a very logical person. I will tell you my idea, but then I will also have at least the first 10 steps in my mind figured out. It might not be written down yet, but making sure that you know what you're talking about when you bring a new idea has been really beneficial to me because you have the ideas, at least you have it halfway thought out before you're just bringing this spur of the moment. Spur of the moment might then negatively affect, especially being younger. Spur of the moment just be lack of experience, where if
Right.
you thought it through, that's a lot better to bring it with some action items.
Yeah. A follow-up bonus question that I didn't write down.
Yes.
Do you find that it does it help you? Because I think you're a pretty quick study of people. I picked that
Mhm.
up on you. Do you think that helps you know how to approach some of your new ideas with different people?
Yes, I also read a lot of body language, and sometimes it's not worth continuing that idea when you can tell on someone's face it is not working. So being okay with just scrapping the idea and going to the next is more than okay. But also, you're right, it's how someone reacts, how someone, if they're excited about it, it makes you more excited about your idea too. So you can
Love it.
feed off of their energy And I know not everyone has necessarily they could read body language maybe as well as I can, but you start to learn and you start to learn each individual person because my
Right.
president is going to be much different than like our creative director or operations manager. They're all going to have a different view if we're trying to launch a new product, do a new marketing campaign, whatever it might be.
Right. Well, to your point earlier, you learn by bringing it up at the wrong time in the wrong way, and you
Exactly.
may not do that again. All right.
Exactly.
Cooking is your therapy at the end of the workday.
Mhm.
If you had to prepare a three-course meal for Gordon Ramsay, which course would be the best for distracting him from the other two?
Oh, probably the main course. I feel like I make good, like if you're going to talk about appetizers and desserts, both of those are really good. I grew up with a mom that loved to bake cookies. So much so that when my dad would travel to Europe for work, her cookies had to go with. So I learned that way with cookies, but I don't think any one dessert's going to stand out or even any one appetizer. Usually my appetizer are a beautiful charcuterie board, but that's not as memorable. But the main course, I love making homemade pastas, homemade sauces. One of my favorites lately has been a bruschetta chicken pasta, and you actually make bruschetta and then you make the pasta. And then it's a simple sauce, but it's just balsamic vinegar and heavy cream. But then that's the sauce for the noodles, and you put the bruschetta on top of it and mozzarella pearls. That is probably my favorite thing right now.
Sounds delicious, and it sounds like you are. I do a lot of barbecuing and smoking the
Yeah.
meat and things like smoking everything. To me, sometimes it's more about the entire process than the actual finished result for the therapy part of it.
Yes, exactly. No, I like sitting there. I like making the fresh noodles. So making the dough. I have a KitchenAid attachment, so I'm not sitting there rolling it all out, but
So you're
it's made it a
cheating.
little easier. I am cheating a little bit.
Okay.
It's still
I am now, along with all four of our listeners, less impressed. Um, you're active in your regional association and plan the Connects, which are fun networking events. What's the most awkward, fun event you've ever planned that went from this is a great idea to feels like a hostage situation?
so I was like, I've more recently taken the position over, but sometimes when you plan an event and not that many people show up, you are there the entire time trying to start conversations. So as we've done a lot of, we do it like you map on tap. Not that they're
Mhm.
awkward or uncomfortable, but you can tell other people have come and they're awkward or uncomfortable sitting there. So I
We're just
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, like that's some of the things too is like bringing those just thought process or would you rather do this or that kind of question sometimes brings
Yeah,
people out of their shell. But I've
it's
definitely been in those
you know
situations.
the regionals are at a challenging point. I've been very active for decades in the regional associations, and rethinking networking events. So I love the fact that at your age you're taking charge of that. So that's awesome.
Well, and
Last
our
question.
oh,
Oh, go ahead. You're gonna
I
say
was just
something?
gonna say too, our young professionals is a little like segment of our connects, and that we had our first meeting, and it's like pulling teeth to have everyone introduce themselves. So that's another situation. It's just making the questions fun and having someone be the main person to keep bouncing is always
Y-
good.
Yeah, you do need a master of ceremonies, a ringleader, something
Hmm.
to, again, starts to feel like a seventh grade dance where everybody's on one side or the other and just kind of like, I don't want to say
Yep,
anything. I don't want to be the first one to say anything. So,
exactly.
all right, here we go. Last question. When you started in the industry 3 months ago, did you look around and think, wow, there are some real industry legends here? Or was it more like, who let all the dinosaurs in this place?
No, I think the industry legends is much more the case than industry dinosaurs. When I first started too, most of the people that I saw were significantly older than I was, but those people have knowledge that sometimes they don't even know that they know, if that makes any sense. Like
Absolutely. No, that makes all the sense in the world. I love that.
so when you just start having conversations, they're going to start pulling things out of how they learned quickly on their feet or how they moved from being a supplier to being a distributor or vice versa or whatever it might be. And some of those people have so much more knowledge that they don't even think is relevant to share. But in the case of legends too, I was like, there's definitely people that stick out. They're kind of the ones too that are willing to go up to anyone and start a conversation or share their knowledge. I got I was fortunate enough to go to the Women's Leadership Conference. So that's a really cool place to meet some amazing people and just share experiences, ask those questions that are kind of the harder questions that maybe aren't being asked, and being okay with you and I not having the same opinion on something.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. We have such an industry of people who are willing to help and want to help. I especially with competitors, people are willing to help
Exactly.
others. And I take lessons from someone like Paul Kiwi, who I always looked up to in the industry, recently retired as executive director of MIPA, as someone who always had time for everybody and always had an open mind no matter who he was talking to. And so I love that approach, and I love your approach of that continual
Yes.
learning. So
And the time piece too is like you'll make time for things that matter to you. Like
always,
you can
I say,
be so busy, but you can make time for things that
I,
matter.
I always, I agree. I say probably far too often. Busy just means you don't have time for it and it's not important to you. So that's fine. There are times I'm busy, but I still have time. Yesterday was my wife's birthday. I was very busy yesterday. I still had time to make sure that she was celebrated properly. So
Yeah,
you do those
exactly.
things. Hey, speaking of learning, let's just thank our friend Russ Mogel at Seven Sourcing for sponsoring this fine broadcast. Now, Lindsay, before I get into this, I want to say you were easily in the top five of guests we've had. This was amazing. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Exciting.
Now, Mr. and
You.
Mrs. Distributor, if you're looking to really up your merch game with your clients this year with some custom branded merchandise, Russ Mogel and Seven Sourcing there to help you. They absolutely demystify the entire process. They have established relationships with vetted and trusted factories. They ensure all merchandise passes a rigorous quality control check by an accredited third-party partner. They comply with and most of the time exceed industry standards, manufacturing requirements, and product safety regulations. And bottom line, they manage every aspect of logistics and communicate through every part of the process. That's a partner you want if you want to take something that is truly cool and make it something part of an iconic brand for your clients. So email them at sales@sevensourcing.com. You're not going to be sorry you did. Lindsay, again, thank you for taking the time. I've been looking forward to this and I hope you enjoyed it.
Yes, it was amazing. So thank you again for having me.